Welcome to Lips on Life. I'm your host, Jessica Lips. I can think of no better way to mark the first year anniversary of Lips on Life than having my next guest, Lolly Daskal. Let me tell you a little bit about her. Lolly is one of the most sought after executive leadership coaches in the world. She founded Lead From Within, a company that helps leaders make a meaningful difference in their lives, workplace, and the world. Lolly is an acclaimed speaker and writer. She has her own blog and pens for publications including the Harvard Business Review and Inc. Her second book, The Leadership Gap, comes out in May of 2017. Lolly has received a host of awards, but my favorite of Lolly's awards is that Huffington Post gave her the title of the most inspiring woman in the world. Wow. How fortunate we are to hear and learn from her now. Lolly, thank you so much for being here. You started your business, Lead From Within, in your 20s. And since then, you have gone on to coach and counsel people from the top leaders from all over the world. How'd you get there?
The first big client, I was talking at an event about Lead From Within. And that's also came from an inner journey. When I was 18 years old, I was really struggling. And from 16 to 18 was a very difficult part of my life. And I knew that if I was going to survive any of my challenges, this thought came to me that I would have to lead from within. And I would talk about what it meant to lead from within. And you have to understand something. This is 30 years ago. People weren't talking about leadership as leading from within. They were talking about leadership as greed and power and influence. It was a very different language back then. But my whole concept is heart-based, meaning that who we are is more important than what we do. And some people in the audience really took to that message. And there was a CEO who actually, he was from Europe, who really liked it. I was popular more in Europe before I became popular in the United States. People were more prone to heart-based leadership and the concept of engaging others than here in the United States. It's interesting. I became more popular there. So he was my first CEO. And then I got a call one day and they said, "Oh, we love what you did for this company. We heard that they were able to reach their targets and their employee engagement went up by so many percentage. We want that magic." I said, "Okay, but I don't think you're going to like what it is." And they said, "Oh, we want it. And when I came in, I taught them the concepts of Lead From Within. He goes, "When are you ever going to teach us the secrets to making money?" I said, "I am." And so it was very interesting. But that's how it is. It's most of my work has been being recommended from one person to the next, or hearing about something in a newspaper and seeing a company there's exponential growth, and someone says, "Who's behind that?" And the CEO goes, "Oh, I have a magic fixer," or I've been called the whisperer. I've been called many things throughout my life, but I've been recommended. She's the one. Bring her in. She'll change everything for you.
How do you have time to write a book? And what was the impetus for the first book? And let's talk a little bit about your next book. What was the impetus for that?
Well, there's, I think, a saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. But I'm a very disciplined person. I have rituals, and there are things that I do on a daily basis, and I do them all the time. My morning ritual is to read a book. Before I even get out of bed, before I start my day, I say, what am I grateful for? And so it starts off my day very grounded because I feel really good about all the things that I do have and things that are wonderful. So I do the gratitude journal. In the evening, I have this one practice that I've been doing for a very long time, where I ask myself two questions. Lolly, what did you do great today? And then I think about the things that I did very well. And then I say, well, what can you do tomorrow to be better? And because I learned a long time ago that if I'm going to compare myself to someone else, I'm never going to measure up. And the only person that I could measure anything against is myself. And so I started this ritual, and I really like it because actually in my new book, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, The Leadership Gap, one of the archetypes that we suffer from is, if we want to do something great, we have to be a rebel who has confidence, right? You have to feel really good about yourself and know what you're good at in order to do something great in the world and to have an impact. But each one of us, there's science that shows that 99.9% of us suffer from this gap of feeling like an imposter who has self-doubt. And when you have self-doubt, it doesn't really allow you to create something beautiful in the world because you're always thinking, I can't measure up or I don't deserve this. And so I started this ritual because I don't want to compare myself to anybody else because I won't measure up maybe, but I can always measure myself against myself. So that's a ritual that I do. So it's 3 rituals that I do no matter what: read, gratitude, and measure how I can be better tomorrow.
That's beautiful. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, you have this incredibly successful consulting practice. How do you have time to write a book, and where did the inspiration to do so come from?
So the first one is a little, it's not really a book, it's a little ebook. What happened was I run a lot of workshops and I work with a lot of clients, and most of my clients like the little sayings that I say. They call them lollyisms. And one of my CEOs was like, I need to know that lollyism. What is that lollyism you always say from your heart? And I said, why don't I just put them all down in thoughts spoken from the heart in a little ebook? And you can give them out to your teams, or you can give them out as Christmas presents. So it's a little ebook of just lollyisms that I say with my clients. So that's
What's a lollyism? Give us an example.
Wherever you go, go with all your heart. I say that all the time. Follow your heart. It's all about the heart. I'm really big into the heart. I really believe that if we come from compassion, if we come from empathy, then we can get anything right. So I really believe that if we're of service to others, we think of others, we care about others, how can you go wrong? So that's a big message of mine.
And where does that come from? Because it's something I actually notice when I look at your Twitter feed, and everyone should follow Lolly if you want to feel positive and inspired and to get great lollyisms. And it's just filled with hope and messages of inspiration. So how did you come to that place within yourself?
It's a great question.
And not just come to it within yourself, but also decide that you wanted to share it with others.
I always want to share with others. I always want to serve others. That's innate. I think I've always been that way. Because I don't know, it's a great question. I believe that we have a choice of what we say and what we do. And I rather be inspiring than not be inspiring. I rather give hope to someone than not give hope. So it's a choice to be that. It's a conscious choice, an unconscious choice. It's who I am. It's who I am at my core.
Do you feel like that's how you were born, or do you feel like that's something you've cultivated over the years?
I don't know if I was born that way, but I really worked hard on being who I am. I feel like I have a lot of layers, and I've worked on all those layers.
Okay, so back to my original question about inspiration for your book and how the heck you have the time with all these rituals and an incredibly thriving consulting practice. Where'd the books come from?
The thoughts spoken from the heart we talked about. So I just put together the lollyisms. But this book in particular it has an interesting story. I wanted to write a book. I actually write for Inc., and I'm one of their top columnists, and I do very well with them. Thousands. Actually, one of my articles recently had 1 million views just reading one of the columns. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I'm going to write a book. I read books. Why shouldn't I write a book? And so I hired an agent, and we sent out a proposal. Then one publishing house said to me, Lolly, what do you do? What have you been doing with your clients? I said, I've been teaching them around a rethink system, a leadership development system that really works. It's magical. They said, why don't you write about that? And I said, I could. I've never actually shared. I've never written about it. I don't talk about it. It's something that I just do with my clients. I said, that will be a great book. Write the Rethink book. I would grow and develop more if I was to stretch myself and put what I do inside a book instead of doing the 7 ways of being a leader or the 3 ways to answer questions or the 12 ways to do this, because that was the title of my proposal. And so here it was, stretching myself, and I signed with them, and voila, 1.5 years later, there is a book. It's funny because it started out a very intense book, and I had to take out a lot and think about what are the small, beautiful pieces of information that I could share that people can really get and implement immediately, and not make it about me, but make it about others. And I thought if I was to be of service in the book to anybody reading the book, it would be a great book. In business and leadership books, most businesses, and especially leadership books, would talk about when to do things, how to do things, where to do things. And then Simon Sinek made why to do things very popular. But then being, an avid reader about philosophy and a student of philosophy, I noticed that there was a gap. Nobody was talking about who you were being while you were doing all these things. And I thought, if we don't do the foundational work of figuring out who we are before how, what, when, and where, we won't get that right. Because the truth is, I can tell you do this, do that, right? But if you're not ready in who you are as a person, you won't do them. I see it within my clients. So my book is very foundational about who you are being while you are living or leading. And that's where the 7 archetypes come from. So Jung really inspired me about the archetypes. They're not his archetypes, but he inspired me that we all have archetypes within us. He's also taught me that we have shadows within us that most of us don't talk about. So what makes this book different in 2 ways is that it talks about who, and it talks about that for every who that you are, there is a shadow, a gap within us. And if we're not mindful of that, it can cost us in having true success. And so this dives really deep into that persona of who we are, so you can leverage those gaps and do what you want to do in your world and in your life and in your business.
So I was curious, while I was reading the book, you have these 7 archetypes that you've identified. How did you come up with them? And do you feel like those are the only ones that exist out there? Right? I mean, how do you generalize people?
So they didn't just happen. With coaching individuals, hundreds and hundreds of individuals, there are patterns that show up within us. As much as people like to think they're very different, they're not. If you talk to 1,000 people, you will start to see a pattern within them. They'll talk about their confidence. They'll talk about their self-doubt. They'll talk about, I can't use my intuition. They'll talk about loyalty. They'll talk about trust. There are things that people always talk about. People talk about truth. People talk about being lied to. So I studied this and I took notes and we did research and we spent an enormous amount of time collecting data of what was the patterns that we saw within individuals. And then what happened was, once we saw the patterns...
Who's we?
Me, myself, and I.
Okay. Okay, you. Good.
Great question. I'll correct that. And once I saw a pattern within individuals, you know why I say we? I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that I'm a partner with anybody that I'm working with. And I never talk about myself as I did this. I never kind of use that pronoun. I always talk about, what are we going to do together? What do we think this is? So it's something that is innate in who I am. And so it's weird for me to say, I did this and I did this, because those patterns didn't come from me. It came from the relationship that we had together. So that's why I used the we, just to clarify that. So once I saw the patterns, I then identified what were the great parts of it and what were the gaps. And it was very easy to see once I knew what they were. I also wanted to come up with an acronym that people would remember a system. And I think life's complicated enough. And I thought, what can I do to simplify something that's complicated? So I came up with the archetypes and then I put them in the order and I said, wow, I can do rethink. And why rethink is because most of us think. Most of us think when we do something, but I want people to rethink. Rethink gives you another chance to get it right. And so it became the rethink model. It became an acronym that people can identify with. It became simplified into 7 archetypes. It became so simple that you can find yourself in each one of these archetypes, that people kept, anytime I do this with a workshop or with a leader, someone says, how do you know me? How do you know me so well? And because this has come from what my relationships with people have told. This is what people have told me. It's not that I made it up and said, this is what I am, or this is what I think you are. I never tell anybody, you are this archetype. They usually tell me by the language that they use, or something that they say, oh, that's me. I'm the truth teller, or I'm the knight, or I'm the navigator. And I tend to be, and then they talk about the gap, which is I'm the fixer. So they tell me, I don't tell them. I would be a horrible coach if I was to tell them who they were.
When many people think about therapists, right, they always wonder if in a therapist's personal life, when they meet someone, they're evaluating them. And I just wonder if you happen to do that. Like if you'll meet someone for the first time and you'll notice their speech patterns or their habits, you'll in your head be going, oh, that person is this archetype. Do you do that?
Absolutely not. I'll tell you what I do. one of the things that I had to learn how it became a practice of mine to be very present. So when I meet someone, like I met you for the first time, right? I walked in, I looked at you, I was present with you, and I wasn't thinking about anything else. What I did think was, this person will reveal themselves to me in the most beautiful way. Whatever they have to offer, I will learn from them. So I never I wouldn't be successful if I was to judge or make assumptions about someone, because people have layers to them, right? We all do. And so what they reveal will be revealed slowly. But the interesting thing is, our shadows, our gaps, tend to be a shortcut to what's really going on within us before we even know what's going on within us. So think about it this way. Let's talk about what people are going to really relate to. So one of the archetypes is a navigator, right? A navigator is someone who's smart, some is practical, some pragmatic, they can solve problems. But there's a gap, and the gap is of the fixer, and the fixer's like, I know what to do. Why didn't you do this? How come you didn't try it? I did it last week, or do it my way. And when you do that, you're arrogant. It's just a gap within you. People don't like it. People don't want, people come to you and say, I have a problem. They don't want you to fix their problems. They just want you to listen. So when someone shows up and starts telling me what to do, how to do it, when to do it, I say to myself, is that maybe a gap for them? Do they feel? And so a gap is, a fixer has a certain persona. What is that? It's somebody who needs to be validated constantly, somebody who needs to please people constantly, someone who needs people to say, oh, wow, they're there. Sometimes they feel invisible, so they have to have presence by fixing everything and being needed all the time. You're good enough the way you are. You don't have to save me. You don't have to fix me. And so a fixer needs to understand just to learn to be okay with themselves and to learn to fix the fixer. So we talk about in the book what it means to leverage the fixer and how to do that. But that's a tell. For me, someone, when they have to come in and solve my life in 5 minutes, I say, okay, what can we do to be more of navigators? So in a conversation, instead of having them fix me, I'll say, well, what do you think is more interesting? I'll start to ask more open-ended questions in order to navigate through things instead of fixing things.
Have you self-identified or can you relate to a certain archetype?
So the thing about these archetypes, which is so beautiful, is that we're not one and we're not the other. We're all 7 of them.
Okay, you beat me to my next question. All right.
Because the truth is, what's about rethink, they're situational. So sitting with you right now, I have to be the truth teller, right? I have to sit and speak with candor. But yet I have to be courageous, be the hero, because maybe I feel uncomfortable, or maybe the setting is not something that, maybe I'm fearful or whatever it is. So at any given moment, we're all these 7 archetypes depending on the situation.
But if someone is predominantly a certain type of archetype when they start reading the book or when they start doing the process of self-discovery, is it possible for them to make a shift?
Absolutely, because we have these archetypes within us, all of them. So let's go to the hero for an instance. So the hero is someone who is courageous, right? But we're all fearful about something, right? And so for the hero to stand in its greatness, has to feel fear and do it anyway, and to be courageous, right? To be brave. But the gap of that hero is the bystander. And the bystander is extremely fearful all the time. So they might see something and they won't do something, or they might hear something and they won't say something. In order to leverage that, we have to teach the bystander that standing by and coasting in your life isn't going to get you what you want. So if you really want something, what does it mean to be courageous? What does it mean to be the hero? And so in the book, it teaches you what to do. And so sometimes we have to realize where the gaps are in our lives and figure out which gap are we really living in and which one can we do to stand in our greatness.
So you're coming out with this book in May. And before we started this interview, you and I met for the first time right outside, and we were catching up for a few minutes, and you told me that you are doing 200 podcasts to prepare for the launch of this book. And that was striking to me for several reasons, and I want to ask you about it. A, it's a ton of podcasts. And B, here's what's really striking. You have more than 1 million Twitter followers. You are hugely successful. You've got like the ears and the eyes and the everything and the heart share of these major executives from around the world. But yet you're still doing 200. It'd be one thing to do like 5, 10 would feel like a lot. So why 200? I'm like really struck by that.
I reached out to 1,000.
What? I would look at someone like you and think, she doesn't need to do that, right? You just wrote this article and you said more than 1 million people saw it. So why are you still doing 200?
Okay, so something a little bit about myself. My whole life is about service to others. So touching people's lives is very, very important to me. To me, 200 is a little number. I reached out to 1,000. I'm thinking that if 200 podcasts, 1,000 people per podcast, how many people is that? I want to reach as many people as I can. I want to help people with as many people as I can. I want to impact lives as many as I can. So for me, I'll be everywhere and anywhere because that's what I'm all about.
That's amazing.
It's about the impact. So if someone reads my book and they say, I found myself in this book and it really helped me, and maybe I'm too much of a fixer and I should be more of a navigator, that in itself is life-changing, is game-changing. Because sometimes people who are in a marriage always say, oh my God, I'm such a fixer, And CEOs say, I should stop fixing. I should be more of a navigator to be a better leader. If we can change lives one at a time, that's what this is about, isn't it?
That's really beautiful. So if I'm hearing from you, it would be helpful if people wrote in if they've actually been touched by your book.
That would be so beautiful.
To email you or to tweet you, or what do you like?
I do my own tweets and I'm on Twitter by myself. So tweet me, contact me through my website, contact me on LinkedIn. Here's another discipline. So I'm of service to others all the time, but I'm a human being, and sometimes when you give and give and give, it would be nice to receive, right? Like you're talking about, wouldn't it be nice if people wrote in and said how they were touched? So I have this folder when people write to me beautiful notes. I have a smile folder that I put all these letters and all these emails into the smile folder. And when things are difficult, like this morning, instead of reading Man's Search for Meaning, I sometimes would go to my smile folder and say, wow, I am making a difference. I am making an impact. So you would understand this. So my tikkun olam, my purpose in life, is really to be of service to others. And if someone says, wow, you've touched my... if someone says, I'm getting all choked up.
Aww.
No, if someone says, you've touched my heart, that's the best gift that you could give me.
Really, I'm really touched by that. That's wonderful. So you just mentioned that you do Twitter on your own, right? That it's all you. And I gotta say, I have never seen a Twitter account like yours. It is going constantly. You can't be going constantly.
I have a system. So the system is that the lollyisms and all of that, I do I have once a week, I sit and write my articles and I put them on there. But every single day I go on Twitter, and the people that are retweeting my articles, I say thank you. I talk to them. We have DM messaging. I'm on Twitter. I make it a ritual to be there. I don't spend hours and hours, otherwise I wouldn't be able to run my business. But sometime in the morning and sometime in the evening, I'll go on Twitter and I'll be present.
Personally, you work all the time? Do you have a family? And how do you have fun? Like, how do you balance?
So I have 3 amazing, they're not children anymore, they're adults, and 26, 24, and 22.
Okay.
And they're beautiful, beautiful children and young adults. They'll always be my children, so I call them children. And they all do their own thing, which is pretty wonderful. I was married. I'm not married right now. But, the thing about it is that you said, what do I do for fun? I'm going to tell you what I do for fun, and I don't want you to roll your eyes. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
I love to read. So when most people like to go to the gym, people like to run, people like to go off for dinner, I love to read. My ritual in the morning between 4:30 and 6:30 is my favorite time of the day because I learn so much. I feel so stimulated in a way that I normally wouldn't. And I just like it. So fun is reading. I know I'm sounding really boring out there, but I like to read. I love spending time with, I try to have Friday night dinners with my children. I beg them to come over. And I like my family. I love my family, and I love to read, and I love meeting great people like you. It's such a pleasure to meet you today.
The feeling is mutual. If you're up at 4:30 in the morning, does this mean you're going to bed at like 9 at night?
I'm a night person.
So how do you sleep?
Not that much. Friends always say you have like two lives. You have your nightlife and then you have your day life.
Nightlife and day life. Like, what are you doing at night?
I'm connecting with friends. I'm doing things to have balance. It's because all day I'm very present with my clients and very there with my clients. And when you work at the level that I work on, everything is always a crisis. You know, I'm not
stressful.
Yeah, I'm not somebody's coach because things are going great.
Right.
Coach because things are not going great. Right. And so at night, it's about finding that balance where to ground myself again, to start fresh in the morning.
That's wonderful. This show is about people who are living their dreams. Do you feel that you are living yours? That's part one of the first question.
You know, that's a great question. I don't think about as my life as a dream, but I think of my life as being purposeful. And if you were to ask me, do I feel like I'm on purpose with my life? Absolutely. You know, dreams, I think they're great and they're beautiful and they're wonderful, but I try not to have dreams as much as to have things that I want to accomplish. I think dreams are like hopes. And for me, purpose and meaning is just more grounded, and I'm going to take action and make it happen.
And that actually leads to the second part of my first question, which is you're talking about things you want to accomplish. So what else do you want to accomplish?
I really want that this book to be in as many hands as can be, and then I will feel really, really happy. The fact that it will change lives is a wish, a dream, a purpose, a meaning. This book is very, very important to me. I feel like almost it's part of my legacy, and it will live longer than I will, and it will go on longer than I will, and it will be around for a long time.
What advice do you want to share with those that are listening? What inspires you? What kind of final words do you want to impart and leave us with?
Something that I think is very important to mention is that when you hear the book that says what stands between you and your greatness, some people might say, well, I don't have greatness. And what I want to say to everybody that's listening is that greatness is a destiny that's available to anyone. And the truth is we just have to make that choice. And that is, if people can really take that in and make that choice, then things will unfold in the most magical way.
But thank you so much for your insights and your inspiration and your words. People, this book is great. It is great. Go get it. I'm not just saying it. And so are you, Lolly. Just thank you so much. This is Jessica Lips with Lips on Life. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.